Hi everyone, I am here today to talk to you about the solution I've created to address my design challenge. So, my design challenge for my master's capstone is how might we create a way to help students reduce the frequency of distracting movement based behaviors in order to increase engagement. And this solution is essentially a timeline with a ton of associated activities. And so, the timeline is really weighted towards the beginning of the year. So it starts before the school year even starts, progresses to sort of a reflection point midway through the year. Um, and this is because in order to address this design challenge, we really need a lot of intentional planning beforehand, as well as reflection along the way. And so the solution aims to address five different design principles, which are color coded. So the reason why these are all different colors is because each of them is filling a different part of the design challenge. So the first design principle that's addressed with the solution is the solution must include movement based instruction. So the elements of this solution that are purple are the pieces that incorporate movement based instruction. In teal or mint green, these are the elements of the solution that address developing positive student student relationships. In Coral, we have elements that address building student teacher relationships. So that would be this piece here, and the pieces on the right side. The fourth design principle is the solution must be trauma informed, focusing on key principles such as developing students' sense of belonging and support for building executive functioning and social skills. So the elements in yellow address trauma informed teaching. And lastly, the solution must be planned through the intentional use of effective classroom management strategies, such as establishing consistent routines. And so the pieces in gray, which includes the Strong Start Plan and this piece, the 20-minute analysis, address the fifth piece. So as I kind of walk through the timeline starting before the year starts, know that each of these pieces addresses a different element of the design principle. So this solution was designed to fully meet this challenge to meet every design principle. A lot of the elements of this solution are teacher driven and many of them occur during the planning stages of instruction. This solution can only be effective if all of the elements are implemented. So for practical use, everything that's underlined is hyperlinked, which would provide a teacher with a template or the resource that's needed to do that part of the solution. So before the school year starts, the base activity that we're going with is the West Strong Start Plan. So if you click on the hyperlink, most teachers at West are familiar with the Strong Start Plan already. This is a template that helps us to be intentional about thinking about how we create conditions for success, like building community, how we teach academics, how we teach classroom essentials and agreements, and how we come back to these ideas during the first 4 weeks of the school year. And so this Strong Start Plan addresses a couple different principles. It actually addresses, with the associated resources, it addresses one, two, three, it addresses four out of the five elements. And so some resources that can contribute to a really strong start plan would be this Team Challenges resource, which is a Google Slides resource that's full of different team building activities. These help students work together. So it addresses the design principle of building student student relationships in like a gamified way. So this resource has a ton of different games and activities that can be done in an ongoing way or just as a one off to help build some relationships. The second resource that might contribute to a stronger Strong Start Plan are these cooperative learning structures that were pulled together by our um, instructional coaches. And these activities like numbers heads, choral response, these can help structure the collaborative or cooperative learning process, which contributes to stronger student student relationships. Additionally, things like kindness tickets can help build stronger student student relationships and build a culture of kindness at the school. Lastly, I created a trauma informed one pager that goes through the basics of trauma informed teaching. It covers what trauma is, what some potential signs or behaviors associated with trauma could be, in addition to the functions of some of those behaviors. And lastly, it goes through some of the important principles of trauma informed teaching, including ways to apply this to your own practice. So, thinking about trauma informed teaching as a foundation for setting up a successful classroom is really important. One note is that when thinking about team challenges or cooperative learning structures, for students with trauma, you should consider doing these activities in pairs as opposed to groups of four. So, this is all before the school year when we have a little bit more time to invest in the planning piece of things. as you sort of get into the swing of more academic um, activities, the next element of the solution is an MBI or movement based instruction resource. So, this element of the solution is really designed to directly impact the design challenge, as all the other pieces are as well. But this is the how. How do we get kids moving around more in the classroom? And so, the first part of this is including a movement based instruction checkpoint into your lesson planning document. So, this is just the lesson planning document that I use to build an IB unit. And on the day to day, you can check the boxes once you have incorporated movement. So, it's really more important that there's higher frequency of movement about every 20 or 30 minutes. So, you can feel free to try any of the categories in the resource I'm about to show you. But there's a distinguishing piece between academic movement and taking a brain break. Both are equally as important and have equal impacts on engagement. The other resource that might help you incorporate more movement based activities into your classroom is this resource. And the research says that movement based instruction has a huge positive impact. And so some of these other activities and tips can help you incorporate movement into what you're already doing. And I think that's a really important piece of this is how can we take what we are already doing and incorporate some movement into it. So later on in quarter one, we can start thinking about how are we going to get kids moving more throughout the day. About halfway through the year, once we start getting more in the swing of things, we've started established relationships with a lot of our students. That's a really good time to stop and check in about a couple of different things. The first is how are my relationships with my students going, and the second is um, how is my routine building holding up after a full semester of learning. So the first thing, this relationship tracker really helps focus on positive student teacher relationships. So the instructions for using this template are on the first page of it, but in essence, the idea is that it allows us to look at our rosters of all of our students, look at some indicators that we have a positive relationship, and then identify which students we might need to focus some more energy on to build that relationship. This spreadsheet also offers some specific ways for building those relationships with students. I also have created a positive message home template that allows us to form more positive relationships with students and their families. And so this is just a rough template that might allow you to more easily and more quickly have those interactions with home. Additionally, greeting every student at the door is a research-based way to develop more positive relationships with students. The last piece of this solution is the first 20 minutes analysis. So partway through the year when we have some more established routines, this is a really great time to pause and think about how am I using the first 20 minutes of class? And so all the directions you need are in this document. The first piece is scripting, so writing out exactly what you're doing at the beginning of class period, then color coding it based on what those tasks are intended to do. Are they helping you get organized? Are they helping you build relationships? Is there time for kids to move during this time? And then some reflection questions that might help you think about how I could use that time more effectively to establish expectations, to build relationships, to do a lot of these things that will help address the design challenge. So, all of these pieces together, all of these resources and reflection guidances can help address the solution. The important piece of it really is that all of the pieces have to be done together. We can pull individual pieces of this, but in order for this to holistically address the design challenge, it's important that all of the elements are present.